One day in this hall, it will surely be said that Russia's war against Ukraine has ended, not frozen, not paused, not forgotten, truly ended.
The Kremlin on September 25th sharply rebuked Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's calls for unspecified global action to compel Russia into peace, with Russian President Vladimir Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov condemning the stance as a fatal mistake that will have serious consequences for Kyiv.
From my point of view, such a position is a fatal mistake. A fatal mistake, a systemic mistake. This is a profound misconception, which of course will inevitably have consequences for the Kyiv regime.
Zelensky, speaking at the United Nations on September 24th, dismissed the idea of peace talks with Moscow, instead urging the international community to act decisively against Russia. The Ukrainian leader framed his appeal in the context of the UN Charter, which mandates respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations.
From the very first second of this war, Russia has been doing things that cannot possibly be justified under the UN Charter. Every destroyed Ukrainian city, every burned village, and there are already hundreds and hundreds serves as proof that Russia is committing an international crime.
Peskov swiftly responded, calling Zelensky's position a profound misconception and warning that such rhetoric from the Ukrainian leader would inevitably have consequences for the Kyiv regime. The Kremlin's reaction underscores its refusal to be pressured into peace under external demands, a stance that Moscow views as a defense of its legitimate interests and territorial security. During his UN Security Council address, Zelensky declared that Russia could only be forced into peace, a remark that prompted Peskov's condemnation. The Kremlin has consistently framed its military actions in Ukraine as defensive, aiming to protect the interests of ethnic Russians in the region and counter what it perceives as NATO's expansionism.
Action is needed, and I'm grateful to all the nations that are truly helping in ways that save the lives of our people. Putin has broken so many international norms and rules that he won't stop on his own. Russia can only be forced into peace. And that is exactly what's needed, forcing Russia into peace as the sole aggressor in this war, the sole violator of the UN Charter.
Peskov further dismissed allegations made by UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who during the UN Security Council meeting accused Russia of violating international law and undermining the UN Charter.
We do not agree with this position. We have repeatedly said this. Russia acts in accordance with all principles and norms of international law, including protecting its legitimate interests. And of course, Russia is categorically against the use of double standards in the interpretation of international law. Both Great Britain and the United States of America are famous for this.
Zelensky, in his impassioned speech, maintained that the principles of the UN Charter would ultimately prevail.
One day in this hall, it will surely be said that Russia's war against Ukraine has ended, not frozen, not paused, not forgotten, truly ended. And this will happen not because someone got tired of the war, not because someone traded something with Putin. Russia's war against Ukraine will end because the UN Charter will work.
However, Moscow remains unmoved by such declarations. Peskov's rebuke signals Russia's unwavering position and its determination to see through its objectives in Ukraine, despite international criticism and sanctions. As the conflict grinds on, the Kremlin appears resolute in its belief that Kyiv's reliance on external pressure will only deepen the crisis rather than bring about peace.